All right, we're back. We got episode number 6, something to talk about podcast. We're gonna do something a little different here. We're actually gonna kind of react to a new Netflix docu series that came out. It's a 3 episode documentary on the Gabby Petito case that pretty much went worldwide and spread super fast back in, I believe it was 2021. You know, the family just came out with a new docu series, and it's 3 episodes. I know you've gotten a chance to watch it. I have too. There's a lot more information that came out, only explaining how even crazier the whole thing was.
Yeah, just when that story first came out, it just got like wildfire. It was everywhere immediately.
Oh, it had to do with, they were on social media. It just seems like people who are on social media, even though they didn't have like a big following or anything like that, people catch on to that a lot quicker than.
Well, there was a lot of their story on there, even when, if they didn't have that many followers, when it did kind of first come out, it was easy for people to go back and look at stuff, and they had a lot of content on there. So it was easy to kind of figure out who she was and who maybe he was.
Yeah. And what was crazy about it is they did like a lot of Instagram and Facebook posting, but they only put out one YouTube video.
Yeah.
And that was it.
That was the plan, though, I think, was to do more YouTube stuff.
Yeah, they were going to do like vlogging and
the
stuff.
van life deal.
And come to find out, just watching this docuseries and listening to kind of some other people explain what they think, I don't really think that this old boy was very interested in the vlogging.
No, it did not seem like that at all.
Because it shows like a lot of the video footage, that happens behind the scene, not what they posted, but a lot of the other stuff where, you kind of put on a face, and then once it's done,
I think that he seemed like he was kind of annoyed with it. I think she wanted to kind of do the road tripping, live in a van, go across the country as like a fun type vacation, vlog type deal. But I think he's seen it as a way to get her away from everybody else and alienate her away from her family and friends and have full control over her.
And there's a lot of evidence to back that up that we're gonna break down here. But without further ado, we're gonna go ahead and get into it. I'm gonna read off a little bit about if you haven't heard about this story. I'm just gonna kind of tell you who Gabby Petito was. She was a 22-year-old. She went out with Brian Laundrie, and the story ended horrifically with everything that kind of transpired over really wasn't that long of a time either. I mean, it was a few months time that they were doing this, what ultimately led to him murdering her.
Well, they met in high school. I think they were both into the arts. They were both like to draw and do that kind of stuff. And they were in the art community at their high school together. And that's kind of how they met.
Yeah. So Gabriella Venora Petito, she was born and raised in Blue Point, New York. She has 6 younger siblings and half-siblings. And in 2017, she graduated from Bayport Blue Point High School in Bayport, New York, where, she had met Brian Laundrie. And from September 17th to January 19th, she lived in Carolina Beach, North Carolina, working as a hostess and in the kitchen of a restaurant in nearby Wilmington. She applied to Cape Fear Community College, but she didn't attend. She began dating Laundrie in March of 2019 and ultimately moved in with him, even though the parents were pretty reluctant on her making that trip because that's a long ways away. Yeah, you're going from New York to Florida.
Her parents lived in Florida still when all this stuff went down?
Her parents lived in New York.
Yeah, New York, yeah.
New York. And they both worked at Publix in Northport. She was a pharmacy technician, and he was in the grocery department. They quit their jobs during the pandemic, COVID-19 pandemic. And then in late 2019, early 2020, the couple embarked on a cross-country drive from New York to California Along the way, they visited a bunch of parks, different beaches. Ultimately, they got engaged in June of 2020. December 2020, Petito purchased a 2012 Ford Transit, which they converted into a camper. So they call it van life. I guess it's a big deal. I know it was a big deal back then. Since then, I know people that have went out in these vans and just, went and did their thing.
Yeah, they were both into camping and the outdoors and stuff, and going to different parks and camping out and stuff. And I know they were both really into that, so that was part of it too.
And to me, it's just sketchy doing that. But I guess I just don't have that personality or will to want to go do something like that. But more power to people that want to. So basically, she bought this camper. She was working like 50 hours a week at Taco Bell, trying to save up to, I guess, remodel this transit, and so they could kind of embark on this journey traveling across the country. Because, kind of like you were saying, she wanted to be a vlogger on YouTube and kind of post everything. Ultimately, we all know what happened. But we're going to kind of work on a timeline here, because I think it's important to kind of go over, different things that had happened, because in the documentary, you kind of see things that, you can kind of see that something isn't right at a certain point, and then ultimately it goes downhill. So basically, March 2019, Gabby and Brian start dating. They've known each other since they were in high school. Her friends and family recall that she was tight-lipped in the early days of them dating, but by the time they left, they were in a very serious relationship. I mean, she packed up and moved all the way to Florida. And that was after 9 months. Okay, so they dated for 9 months, and then they decided to, move to Florida and be closer to Brian's family, which I know he had some nieces and nephews he wanted to be around. And then
I don't think she got along with his parents very good. I think that was one of the reasons they decided to go out on this road trip. Was I think she wanted to get away from his family. Which, I mean, when you find out some of the other stuff that happens along the way, it's kind of understandable.
The Roberta, and this is just all our opinion, the Roberta, Brian's mother, she seems to be like a real piece of work.
Yeah, I don't think that mental illness was just with him. I think that ran deep in some of that family.
I think you're right, because, Gabby's mom had gotten something in the mail saying that she was changing her address back to the New York address. And so she called Gabby and was like, are you moving back? And she said, no, I think it's Brian's mom, Roberta, who changed that. So I don't know why there would be any jealousy or anything like that towards her with the mom, but it's definitely a little sketchy.
Yeah, probably the mom seeing it as her taking time away from her with his son.
Which is just weird.
Yeah, I don't know.
But there's a lot of weird shit that happens in this with her and, her husband, Brian's dad, anyways. But okay, we jump to July 2nd, 2020. Gabby puts out a post that Brian had proposed to her and didn't tell her mom. The only reason her mom found out was because Brian's mom, Roberta, made a post online about it. And the weird thing was, he didn't even have a ring. It just so happened that a firefly landed on her ring finger, and they said, nature decided that they needed to be married. They needed to be together.
Yeah, that damn firefly.
Brian didn't call or talk to Gabby's dad about, the engagement and, asking for her hand, which I think, for me, is very weird. There's no way I would ever propose to somebody without asking the dad.
It should be done. I mean, that's definitely for sure. But, I don't know. We're getting in a different age where, that's probably not as pushed as it used to be.
Yeah, the traditional men and women are no longer, in, my age group and society, there's not
She
very
must have
many.
not been very proud of it if she didn't let her mom know about it immediately. I mean, seemed to me like maybe she didn't want it out there.
I don't know. I know personally, if I got engaged, and my family found out about it on a social media
Ooh.
post.
Yeah.
They wouldn't be too happy about it.
No.
But they moved super fast, and to this point, he didn't ask the dad for her hand in marriage, and you're going off a firefly that landed on her ring finger and saying that it's fate. And I guess some people probably believe that kind of stuff, but and I'm not even saying you have to have a ring to propose.
Well,
But
they were both young too, so I mean, you're more of a dreamer at that age than when you're a little bit older.
Yeah, that's true. And they just spent all the money that they had trying to get this van going as well. So he probably didn't have any money to buy a ring. And
I
that's
don't know
okay.
if he did. I don't never remember hearing anything about where he worked or anything. I know she did, but I don't know what he did. I don't think he did anything.
I don't know if she was just supporting him or what. I mean, I'm thinking that his mom and dad had to have some money. Yeah. Because from, we're going to get into, they wired $25,000 to a lawyer. So maybe he was just living off mommy and daddy.
Maybe. They upped and moved to Florida real quick. I know that.
And living off mommy and daddy, that would be one of the ways that he could have turned out the way that he did. Okay, so they're proposed now. And then this is July of 2020. So now we're moving on to all the way, a year. They're going to July 2nd, 21. They travel back to Gabby's hometown in New York for, I think it's her brother has a graduation. And ultimately they, tell the mom, dad that we're leaving. We're going across the country on this van life excursion. And the mom in the documentary, she says that it was the biggest hug she'd ever given her, and that she was crying, and she just kind of asked her, why are you crying?
Yeah,
and
she
seemed reluctant. I think she wanted to go. I just don't know if she wanted him to go with her.
Yeah, there was some signs, I think, from a while that she knew that things weren't real stable.
We gotta jump back here before this point, because you brought up a good one. She had met some friends down in Florida, and one of the friends she had matched with on Bumble, and they became friends and started hanging out a lot, and it became pretty clear that Brian didn't like her hanging out.
Yeah, taking time away from him. I know it showed some of the text messages and stuff when they were down there, because she'd be with her friend and then he would be by himself, and he was super controlling and didn't want her spending time away from him at all.
Yeah. Some of the shit that he said was, he even at one point called Gabby's mom and said, she's spending all this time with her friends, these new friends, and they're bad influences and all this other shit. It's like, I don't know if it gets much more controlling than what he was doing. And gaslighting for sure.
There was a lot of signs leading up to that he was a little bit not right in the head. And, I guess you can look back and see those signs, but when you're young, you probably don't really realize what's going on.
Yeah, and her friend even said, whenever they met the first time, that he was kind of standoffish. He was nice, but there was just something wrong with. I mean, she's seen something wrong with him, and she didn't feel very comfortable, like, around them in that sort of situation.
Yeah, even when you watch the videos of them, what they were doing, the vlogs and stuff, he's a little bit backwards, like.
Well, and, with the video camera, that can make people who aren't normally socially awkward.
Oh, for sure.
Very awkward.
Yeah, it's not easy. That's for damn sure.
I mean, look at us right now.
Yeah, we kind of mumble about some shit.
But, yeah, I mean, she said that there was one night that, the friend said that there was one night that her and Gabby were supposed to go square dancing, and they lived like 30 or 40 minutes apart. And, Gabby was late, like an hour late. So she texted her and was like, is everything okay? And apparently Brian had took Gabby's wallet with her ID, and Gabby didn't realize it till she got to the girl's house. So she had to turn around and go back, and he didn't want her to go. Took her wallet and ID. Like, that's the next level controlling shit right there.
Yeah.
I think at that point I'd have been like, I'm out.
Yeah, I'm sure, like, even like our parents and stuff probably look back on it now, and there was probably a bunch of signs they seen that they should have intervened or maybe said a little bit something.
But if they didn't, but they released this docuseries because they didn't know a lot of this information. Like, they were finding out stuff about the whole deal, not from, the people working with the police departments and the detectives. They were finding out about it on, like, the news.
Yeah, when they were watching the news.
Watching the news and finding information out.
I know they were doing an interview with one of the journalists, and the journalist asked them a question about something. They're like, well, this is the first time I've heard of this. I don't even know this information yet.
Which is crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they were on the Chris Cuomo interview whenever, I think it was her stepdad that found out about that. But, I mean, there was definitely a lot of signs that, he ain't it. But, when you're that young, we're all young and dumb. We've all put up with a lot more shit than what, we would at a matured age.
And when you love somebody, you can love somebody that's a shitty person.
Yep.
When you love somebody, you kind of overlook some of those things. But they always come back.
All right, so we're going to jump back up. All right, so Gabby and Brian, they leave New York. They're headed across the country here. Okay, so August 12th, 21 is when they get pulled over. And what had happened was a witness reported a domestic violence incident to the police in Moab, Utah. The couple was pursued and eventually pulled over by the authorities. We've all seen that video footage.
That's when shit started getting real weird.
That watching that, he seems to be like super calm and collected, and she is just totally out of her mind.
Yeah.
Like distraught.
So I had seen like bits and pieces of that video, but I'd never seen a lot of it like it was on there. And I'd always been under the impression, kind of like, how could the police have seen a guy hitting a woman like that, or knowing that happened, and then not doing anything about it? But then after you watch the video, it's like she was pleading that I was attacking him. And I mean, he's got scratches all over his face, but she had scratches on her arms and stuff too. So I'd say they were both going at it, but it seemed like she was more of the aggressor in this situation from what she was telling the police. Now, if that was true, nobody probably is ever going to know. He might have been doing most of it, and she might have just been defending herself, but she did not seem like that to the police at all.
The thing about it is, all this went down, and this is just kind of my thinking on it. We've gotten this far, as far as them two, they'd gotten this far. She's put up with a lot of shit.
Yeah. Like,
she has been manipulated, controlled for a year at this point, if not more.
And now isolated.
From everybody. Mm-hmm. He's the only one she knows out there. I would say, I could almost guarantee it. This is just my opinion, though, but I can almost guarantee it. There was a conversation that was had in that vehicle before the police got up to that door.
For sure.
You're going to say this. You're going to say that. Because if you look back at that footage, whenever they first go up and talk to him separately, he rolls down the window, and the first thing he says, "Did you talk to Gabby?"
Yeah.
I guarantee
he was trying to reach for information.
I guarantee you there was a conversation that had in there that and that's the thing. Like,
he seemed suspiciously calm.
Yes.
Like, if he would have had it, even if she would have been, he did have scratches and shit on his face. So if she was attacking him, he would have been a little bit more, I feel like, emotional and upset about it.
There had to have been a conversation had after that, saying, if somebody asked, this is what happened, because I think he said he pushed her away after she had clawed him,
yeah.
And then she said that, like, he'd put his hand up.
Yeah, he said he never hit her. He said that he was just pushing her.
But the call says that he was slapping her.
Yeah, he said that it said that he hit her. Now, there's a slap or punch or whatever. It said that he hit her. So there's some kind of disconnect there. I'm sure it was probably an anonymous call.
Yeah.
And they probably didn't have the people's information to talk to him again. But it puts the police that was there in a hell of a situation, because you don't want to leave her in a dangerous situation with him, to where, he's obviously bigger, stronger, he could have hurt her a lot easier. But at the same time, they have to protect their butt too, to not, if it's the other way around, if she was the one attacking him.
Which she admitted to. Mm-hmm. She said that she was the aggressor.
Yeah.
It was so bizarre, though, because when the cop finally got back in the car and there was another officer in the passenger side window, he said, he predicted what happened. He had said that, a lot of times, or sometimes when these things happen, it only progresses until one or the other is killed. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what happened.
And, like the cops, they try to do their best, but they were put in a really tough situation to where they didn't really know what to do either. You could see they all gathered around and they're discussing, what the heck do we do? And some of them, they were kind of weighing out their options. It was like, well, we can try to keep them apart, but unless one of them want to file charges against the other one, like, we can't just force them to be apart. And they got him a hotel room to stay in. That was for domestic abuse. He got a hotel room for free. They told them to stay separated for the night. No texting, no good night, no nothing. Just completely stay away from each other for the whole night, and then, figure out what to do tomorrow. But they didn't even do that.
No, they didn't even do that. And they made her stay in the van, gave her a spot where she could go take a shower for like $4 or $5. He was like, it's super cheap to go take a shower. $4 or $5. And in my mind, I was like, damn, $4 or $5 to take a shower?
That's what I was
Holy
thinking.
Cow.
It's just not free?
No.
I thought it was free.
But yeah, watching that footage back, and imagine being one of those officers there and on that, and then ultimately you see what happened.
Yeah.
Like,
they got to be kicking themselves in the butt. Maybe they could have done something more to intervene. But they
and
probably see this kind of stuff every day.
Yeah.
A lot of places. So, they probably see that most of the time when they try to intervene, it doesn't do any good. So they probably just thought, this is just another one of them cases, but it got a lot worse from there.
Yeah, I know there was a lawsuit against the Moab Police Department.
This is Moab, Utah, right?
Yep. I know there was a lawsuit against them. I don't know what happened with it. Okay, so he ends up getting a hotel room. She has to stay in the van. They were told not to talk to each other at all, not even good night texts, and they ended up meeting that night.
Yep.
So that went out the door. Jump to August 19th, 2021. Gabby posts her first and only YouTube video, which pretty much just tells about the road trip that they've been on to this point. All right, so jumping to August 22nd, and I didn't really know any of this info. I don't think this was out on the other documentaries that came out. August 22nd, she reaches out to an ex-boyfriend named Jackson.
Yes.
And pretty much tells him that her and Brian have been fighting. She had even told him that she was coming up with a plan to break up with him. She just didn't know how. And on the interview with him, he made it seem like, he was kind of asking, what do you mean? You're trying to figure out a way how. And she pretty much said that she didn't know what he was capable of.
Well, I didn't know that information either. And it seems to me like after I seen that, the first things I was thinking of, she must have a fear of being alone. Because why else would you text your ex-boyfriend unless you're trying to maybe work something out to where when you move on from this person, you had something else ready to go.
I don't know if
and maybe that's why she didn't leave him at this point, was because she was afraid of being alone.
I hadn't really thought of it like that. What I kind of thought of was, maybe he was somebody that she was just used to confiding it because they dated for over a year.
They did, but when she messaged him, he said he hadn't heard from her in a long time.
Yeah.
So it was just kind of out of the blue. They weren't like really, talking before this.
And the crazy part is he said that they had talked about doing what her and Brian were doing as far as living the van life, traveling across the country and doing all that stuff.
Yeah.
He said it was pretty tough looking at the post, seeing, her and Brian kind of living out this dream that they had talked
Seeming
about.
like they're happy.
Yeah, seeming like they were happy.
It's a good, the really bad point about social media. Kind of inflates everything. You don't want to show the bad sides of shit. You only want to show that great picture that we're happy kissing on top of the world,
Yeah, I mean, people see all these influencers and stuff on, doesn't matter if it's TikTok or wherever, they've always got a smile on their face. I guarantee you a lot of them, when the camera stops, it is not like that.
Exactly.
Because you see all these stories.
That's not the real world.
No, it's not. That's, I call it fairy tale land on all that shit. And you see a lot of these deals where, a lot of these TikTokers or whatever, somebody ends up killing somebody over whether it's jealousy or whatever. It definitely happens. So it just goes to show you, don't believe every face that you see, because a lot of times there's some skeletons in some closets there.
Damn, that's for damn sure.
All right. So he believes, or she had told Jackson, her ex-boyfriend, that she's planning on breaking up with him. She just doesn't know how to at this point. And that was August 22nd. Jumping forward to August 25th, just a few days, is when Gabby uploads her last Instagram post. It's just her smiling in front of a large butterfly mural. And then 2 days later, August 27th, Gabby contacts Jackson, the ex-boyfriend, again, via Snapchat from Wyoming, and says she's thinking of him. And later she calls, but he's at work and was unable to answer the phone call. And I know in the docuseries he's pretty upset that he wasn't able to answer that phone call because he was at work, because that could have been a last phone call of her crying for help.
Yeah, that could have been the one that saved her.
And, it would be tough not to live, thinking that that's what that could have been. But you just don't know. I don't think she left a voicemail or anything like that.
I'm not sure what happened in that relationship or why it didn't work out, but it seemed to me like he was the one, not the one that maybe wanted to separate. He seemed like he was still kind of had a thing for her.
Well, and he said that just wasn't the right time for either one of them when they ultimately broke up. But, it kind of says a lot about him that she was reaching back out to him, talking about, kind of the stuff that was going on between her and Brian. I don't know how much details it was. He didn't really give too much detail on the documentary, but, he said that they'd had a pretty lengthy phone call. And I know at some point in here, I think it was around that time, Brian had flew back to Florida to empty out a storage shed, and that's when she actually reached out to her ex-boyfriend.
Yeah, she was by herself for a couple of days.
Yep.
And kind of once you get away from that isolation of being with that one person, your mind starts opening up to different ideas and things of your own instead of the ideas that the people have planned for you.
Yeah, that would have been the perfect time for her to get away.
Yep.
When he flew back to Florida is when, cut off contact. Just completely just done. And try to stay away from him. Or just go back home. Yeah. Drive that van all the way back home. You call your mom and dad and say, hey, I don't feel safe. They're either going to come get you.
Oh, they would have come and got her for sure.
Or they're going to tell you. I know the mom told her that she needed to come home several times. Especially after that incident where, she had called and was crying and that they got into it.
At that age that she was at, you're trying to get out on your own and show your parents that you're an adult and that you can do this and, all the ideas you have. And then they're probably the last people that you want to tell that kind of stuff to, because you want to prove them right that you are trying to do something with your life. And situations like that where, all she would have had to do is tell her parents, I'm not happy. This isn't working out. I'm scared. He's dangerous, or any of that stuff.
I think the dad would have probably beat the shit out of Brian if he knew what was going on.
I think so.
He's a big boy.
He was big, and Brian's not very big.
No.
So I know that was. We can get to his letter and stuff that he wrote later, but some of that stuff was in there about her dad.
Hindsight 2020, us looking at it from the outside, that would have been the perfect time for her to make her escape whenever he left to go back to Florida. Cut all ties or just go home. Because it was her van. The van was in her name, the title.
Yeah.
She bought it.
Yep.
I guess, she would have picked him up from the airport and they would have continued on. This dude's a snake. This Brian guy's a snake.
For sure.
And there was a lot of people that thought that there was something off with him. But you never dream of somebody doing something that like what he did to her.
Just the text messages that he sent her and stuff were horrible.
Disgusting.
Like, the way he talked to her and stuff, like, that should have been enough right there to be like, whoa, what the fuck is going on with this dude? This isn't okay.
Like, even all the way back to the Florida thing, whenever he took her ID to keep her from going out with her friend and going and having a good time, square dancing or whatever the heck, line dancing, whatever they were doing.
When you're 21, 22, that's just what people do at that age.
You should have been like, yeah, I'm out. But, young love can be, it can be a bitch. But all right, so August 28th, Brian leaves Spread Creek, dispersed camping area on the edge of Grand Teton National Park to go to Coulter Bay Village, Wyoming, and he takes photos along the way. According to the cell phone records later, he calls his mother and stays on the line with her for an hour. So this is when he was making posts of, like, I think there was an elk shed and there was like a bunch of skulls. He'd posted just a bunch of pictures, and they believe that's the day that, he ultimately killed Gabby, because
there was calls back and forth to his mom and his dad multiple times that day, and from his mom to his dad for extended periods of time. But there was one talk that was an hour long.
And after he got off the phone with his mother, that they had a list of like the cellular data reports. Mm-hmm. Not long after he got off the phone with her, the dad had called a lawyer and wired him $25,000.
Yes, that same time.
So my guess is he told them what happened.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
And they didn't tell anybody. They immediately lawyered up. To me, that's conspiracy.
I don't know how that's not illegal. I mean, it's got to be illegal.
For sure. It's got to be something. They didn't get charged with. They still haven't been charged with anything.
Yeah, they should be.
You damn right they should.
Yeah.
But, okay, so according to the cell phone records, Brian calls his mother, stays on the line with her for about an hour, and then ultimately he gets a ride. He's hitchhiking down the road. He gets a ride from a woman named Miranda Baker from Coulter Bay towards Jackson, Wyoming. And then ultimately later a woman named Norma Jean notices Brian walking down the road and decides to help him out and gives him a ride back to the Spread Creek campsite. Where he had told her that, his fiance is sitting there at the van, editing this video because she's a vlogger. The interesting story with this is, obviously you don't know this dude just killed his fiance. And she said as they're driving, it was bizarre because she had a Bible up on her dash and she had made a turn and it slid off onto his lap. Yep. And he just kind of grabbed it, looked at it, and just gently set it back.
I'm pretty sure she had just went to church service.
She was headed to church.
She was headed to church? Okay, yeah. I knew there was something to do with church in there. And, I mean, if you just killed your fiance and you're getting in a vehicle with somebody and you're totally calm as a cucumber, like, he's a psychopath.
Yes. Is that a psycho or a sociopath?
I mean,
Well, what's the difference between a
I
psycho?
don't really even know.
I don't either.
A psychopath would be somebody that they usually don't have emotions the same way.
Yeah,
so
he's a psychopath.
he's definitely psychotic. If you have no emotions over just killing your fiance, then
And just carrying on a conversation
Yeah,
like
just-
nothing happened.
just jump in somebody's van and they think that everything's just fine.
What kind of sick and twisted individual do you got to be able to do that?
Yeah, I don't get it, man. It's just your brain just can't comprehend how you could hurt somebody like that.
That's one thing that does piss me off about this whole thing is, I mean, there's some letters that he ultimately fabricated saying what happened, but I want to know why he did it. Did he find out that she had reached out to her ex?
To her boyfriend. That was never said in any of his
It
writings.
was never said. You know, was he able to find out? You know, I mean,
Maybe he got her cell phone and went going back through her cell phone and found some of that stuff. But just to be able to, because I mean, the autopsy, she was strangled to death. That's how she died.
yeah, there was a blunt force to the head, and then strangulation was what
Strangulation was the
ultimately killed
cause
her.
of death. So I mean, to sit there and strangle her to death and look in her eyes and know you're taking somebody's life, to be able to do that, you have to have no emotion.
And someone that you supposedly love.
Yeah, that you love.
This is just my personal opinion. I think that he found out about the ex, or it was either that or she said that she was done. And ultimately, it was one of those deals where he made the decision that if I can't have you, nobody can.
Yep.
And that's why he did it.
It makes sense.
It's-
I'd never have thought of that till you just said it, but it makes a lot of sense.
I mean, either way, it's fucked up, but I just don't. I mean, it started to get physical. Yeah, obviously, there is mental, emotional, every kind of abuse you can put on someone, and then ultimately it leads to that.
Yeah, you don't, if you're her, you probably think that you can change him and you don't think he's capable of something like that.
Well, whenever he does something, and then every time he apologizes by saying, "Oh, I was so stupid," and all this stuff, and just totally manipulating you, knowing he's not gonna change
Those are
any of his ways.
Those are pretty typical signs of an abuser. I mean, he would if he hadn't killed her, then it would have turned into him, hitting her and abusing her. And if they stayed together, this had one end.
Yep.
And is exactly how it ended. Life's not just sunshine and rainbows all the time. You're going to go through hard times.
Yeah.
And they experienced maybe just a little bit of hard times with that stuff, and he lost his mind and killed her.
I mean, he's a coward. I mean, he's a waste of life.
Yep.
I mean, that's him to a T. Okay, so this all happened on August 29th, his phone call and getting dropped back off at the campsite by Norma. And the next day, August 30th, Brian begins his drive back to Florida without Gabby. He even uses her debit card to pay for gas and transfers $700.
Transferred money out of her account and then writes something on there. I don't even remember what he said, but
It says, "Goodbye, Brian. I'll never ask you for anything again."
How fucking creepy is that? Trying to play the victim after you've done something like that.
They had said that he was like texting off, like he would send her, like whenever he was out on his deal before he got dropped back off at the campsite to go where Gabby was at the van, he was texting her phone, and then he would text back off of her phone to him.
Well, supposedly,
He was trying to get like an alibi going.
yeah, he was trying to figure out a way to get out of it, but he had said that she had left him and that they weren't together. But then they went back and looked at the cell phone data, and when he's sending these messages back and forth, the cell phone's right there next to each other. So they were not separated at that time.
Yep.
And she, from her, the whatever the autopsy type deal to figure out when she died, they knew that she was dead at this time he was sending these text messages.
Yep.
So it was very obvious at that point that he was sending them back and forth he was trying to create this story. And I think that was kind of where the police really started being like, oh, okay, this guy killed her.
I mean, it's just blatant at that point with all the evidence that they had just off the cell tower pings. And then, okay, so he uses her debit card to fill up with gas, and, he fakes this whole thing by saying, acting like Gabby, goodbye, Brian, I'll never ask you for anything again. In the meantime, Gabby's mom, Nicole, receives a text from Gabby's phone that basically says, can you call Stan and check on him? I'm getting a bunch of missed phone calls from him. And she thought that was super weird because she never called her grandpa Stan. She called him Grandpa. I think most grandkids call their grandparents Grandma or Grandpa, or something along those lines. So she thought that was really weird, but she also was just but she was also kind of thinking, is Gabby driving and Brian just texting off her phone?
That's true.
Which is a reasonable
That's a reasonable thought. But going back and looking at it now, that is another sign of psychopathy, because he doesn't understand the emotion of calling somebody grandma and grandpa. It would just be like, this is your title, your name is Stan, and he wouldn't even probably put two and two together.
Yeah.
Of that emotional connection that, hey, that you're grandpa, you're not Stan.
Dude's fucked up. Okay, and then from September 1st through the 7th, 2021, Gabby's mom, Nicole, texts Gabby repeatedly and receives no response. Okay, and during that time, September 6th through the 8th, I didn't know this either, Brian, his parents, and his sister Casey all went camping together back in Florida.
Yeah, it was the 6th through the 8th?
Yes.
Oh, in the documentary, I thought that his sister had got on there and said they were only there for like 6 hours or something.
This is what the investigator was talking about.
So she was lying on the documentary.
Sure.
Okay.
There's so much lying done by that family.
Dude, it's insane.
So from the time that, okay, so they think that Gabby was killed on, I believe it was August 28th, because August 27th was the last surveillance footage where they had caught Brian and Gabby walking out of Whole Foods in Jackson, Wyoming. And that was August 27th. So sometime between August 27th that night and August 28th, they suspect that she was killed. So then you jump forward to the 6th of September, which I guess would be, week and a half. He's back home with his family camping, having a little family camping. So I wondered, did he tell them all? Did he maybe tell his sister at that point that what he did? Because his parents already know.
Yeah.
You can't convince me otherwise. They already know. So, which I thought was really interesting, because Casey, the sister, she says, oh, well, we have no idea. The family's not talking to us. Basically, I think she fucking knew something too.
I do too.
How can you, okay, September 6th through the 8th, that's 2 whole days of being around.
There's 2 easy facts here that you would automatically question. Brian's home. Gabby's not. She's missing.
Yep.
Those 2 facts right there put a big question mark on, well, smells kind of funny. Something's wrong here.
I remember watching back whenever they had said, okay, well, Brian's home and Gabby's not. Everybody knew that he had killed her.
Yeah. How the fuck is this guy still out running around?
And then
why is he not in jail?
At some point, they lose him.
Yeah, they're supposed to have the house scouted out, and he gets away.
I mean, what a cluster, what
Jesus
that was down there in Florida. So after they get done camping, the next day, Nicole texts Gabby's father, Joe, her biological father, Joe, to see if he'd heard anything from their daughter. And he says that he hasn't heard anything either. and Jackson had said that, they reached out to see if maybe she had talked to him. And
I don't think, just from watching the documentary, it didn't seem like they had a great relationship. I mean, I don't know that for a fact, but her and her dad, I don't know, it just didn't seem like they talked that much.
Yeah, I'm not too sure. I know, 6 months after she was born, the parents split up.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I kind of got that vibe too, but,
You don't know. I don't know that for a fact. It just seemed like that to me.
But September 10th, Gabby's mom, Nicole, reaches out to Roberta Landry, which is Brian's mom, and receives no response. So her first message that went through was, it was like an iMessage. It was delivered in blue. The next time that she texts her, it was green.
Like she had been blocked.
Which is sketchy.
Already trying to distance yourself away from the situation.
And then Joe reaches out to the Landrys via text, and he doesn't get an answer either. So then they go to Facebook, and they start making posts that they're looking for Gabby at that point on September 10th. September 11th, Gabby's family called the U.S. Park Police and the Northport Police in Florida, where the Landrys live. And so anyways, this is where shit starts getting wild. Because when they show up to inquire about if they've seen Gabby or if they've seen Brian, they pretty much say nothing. And then they all of a sudden say, well, Brian's here. Brian's home.
Yeah.
And said, we're not going to talk to you anymore. You'll have to talk to our lawyer. And the investigator just shows up to see if they know anything. And then he's having to call back to New York to talk to the investigators there, like, well, they just admitted that Brian's home.
Yep.
And in the docuseries, it was almost like the two departments got into a pissing match because the guy in Florida's like, well, what the hell do you want me to do? And these people are like, this girl's fucking missing if she's not with him.
Yeah, he's got to know something.
And eventually,
the guy's like, I got nothing to charge him with because there's no body.
Yeah, so I'm pretty much just knocking on the door, see if they'll give me any information. And then finally he goes back up to the door and says, you see how this could be fucking weird for anybody? Your son's home, his girlfriend isn't.
Yeah.
Where are they? And they're like, well, Brian's not going to talk either. And finally the officer says, is this Van and Brian and Gabby's name? And they said, well, we don't know. And he said, it's in Gabby's name. The title's in Gabby's name. I'm taking this fucking van.
Yep.
And I'm going to get a tow truck in here. And the guy was like, you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, he moved his car out of the way so he could pull the van out. I mean, I know that, as a parent, you want to do whatever you can to protect your kid. But this is over a totally different line.
Well, wait till we get to this letter.
Yeah, the letter is super
that
creepy.
Roberta wrote up. It's bad whenever at the bottom she says burn after it says burn after reading.
Yes.
This is the kind of fucked up family that this
if
is.
This was in a letter there, can you imagine what the rest of being around that family was like? If this kind of stuff was in the letter, hard telling what all was.
There was video footage, and I remember seeing it on the news. There was so many news people and people from the neighborhood that was out on the street yelling at the Landry's house for weeks. Weeks just sitting there yelling, where's Gabby at? Where's she at? Where's Brian?
There's some kind of disconnect there with the authorities, and I guess he ended up killing himself, but why was there nothing done about it? Is there an exact law that says, hey, he broke this because she's missing and there's no body yet, so we don't have anything to charge him with? That might be true, but if you have a damn brain, everybody in America knew that this guy had something to do with her being gone. Everybody.
And they obviously that department down in Florida, that guy that went there, whenever he asked the first question and they said, we're not talking to you, we have a lawyer. What is going through your head? Red flag. Red flag. Yeah.
It's like, damn. Yeah, that says you're guilty immediately.
They hired a lawyer the day that she was killed, and he called them. Or the next day.
I don't know. Like, I guess he hadn't been charged with anything at that time, but I know like harboring a criminal is against the law.
Yep.
And I mean, maybe there isn't any facts that say that they knew that at that time that he had killed her, but everybody knows that they did.
They knew in that 55-minute phone call on August 28th.
Yep.
The mom knew for sure. And the dad ultimately knew because they wired $25,000 to a lawyer.
Yeah, if you split up and there's an ugly breakup between them two, and he comes home and she's just kind of went and did her own thing, you don't call a lawyer and get a lawyer set up. They knew at that moment that he'd killed her.
Absolutely, they did. So September 11th, they're made aware that Brian's home and that the family's not answering any questions. They have a lawyer. Jump to a couple days later, September 13th, Gabby's stepdad, Jim, travels to Wyoming, where Gabby was last seen, to assist the on-ground search. 4 days later...
There was a big search there. A lot of people were out looking for it.
Lots of people.
I don't remember the name of the park there, but...
September 17th, police receive a tip that they thought somebody OD'd at the Landry home. And when they arrived to investigate, Brian's parents informed them that Brian is no longer there and that he's been missing for days after heading out on a hike in the nearby, I'm not even going to try to pronounce that creek down there.
Come on, I want to see you try it.
Mayak Etchy? Yeah, I don't know. So during this time, so they go out and they're searching for him at this point. And the next day, September 18th, this is when the authorities finally came out and said, we need public assistance tracking Gabby. And they said that they'd received thousands of tips on this. And what was crazy is...
they were driving a white Ford Vans that there's, I don't know how many thousands and thousands of them out there.
And at this time, people are doing this van life thing everywhere.
Yeah.
Like, it's a big thing. And what was crazy is, I think, honestly, the only reason they found her body was because this other couple, I think their channel was called like Red, White, and Buffoon or something like that. They had looked back at their YouTube footage that they had taken because they're doing the same thing, and actually had footage of Gabby's van at, I think it was called Spread Creek, where they had parked that van.
Yeah, it was just a quick glimpse of it, of her van
because
on the side of the road.
In that docuseries, they were talking, the girl was talking that, they had originally put out, a certain date that Brian and Gabby were there. Well, then they had updated that, and it went back to like August 27th through the 30th or whatever, and that's when they had showed up. And she said, it was crazy because she knew exactly that it was their van.
Meant to be.
And she put it out, and she said it received like 1 million views in less than 24 hours. Mm-hmm. And it actually helped the detectives find her body and figure out what had actually happened. Which is just crazy because you had who would even have thought of having your video camera on the whole time while you're driving down
They were just driving down a gravel road, yeah, and it was just like I don't know how long the clip is, but it's like a 2-second glimpse of the car just as they're passing of the van.
But I think if I was out there and I was living the van life, and of course this spread everywhere, everybody was talking about it, watching it, reading up on it, I would have looked back through all of my footage to see if I seen anything.
Yeah. Yeah, you definitely want to help out in any way you could. It's a good thing she was filming, just going down a gravel road.
Yeah.
Did you see her earrings she had on?
Mm-mm.
It looked like she took 2 pieces of stick and just broke them off and then hooked them onto her ears. They were just literally just chunks of stick.
Van life. Hashtag van life.
Hashtag hippie.
And then, okay, so they had received that information September 18th, and September 19th they found Gabby's body at at the Spread Creek camping area in Wyoming, and they ultimately did an autopsy and ruled it that it was a homicide and blunt force trauma to the head, and the ultimate cause of death was strangulation.
Yes.
So, and then her stepdad has to identify the body and then make those phone calls to, not only his wife, but, Gabby's stepdad and Gabby's stepmom. And I can't imagine. I don't have any kids, but I can't imagine.
I don't know how. I mean, it's the hardest thing that you could possibly ever go through. I mean, it's every parent's worst nightmare. It's way worse than dying. At this point, they had to have known this was probably going to be what happened in the end, but you always have that hope until they find the body, and then it's all gone.
Yeah. Because there was just so much effort and time trying to find her. And ultimately, you got the closure. I know that next day there was a federal.
I don't think I'd even want the closure if I was that parent. I mean, even if you were 99.99% sure she was dead, there's always that hope. And sometimes that little bit of hope is maybe enough to keep you going.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would have different, opinions on that. A lot of people, I think, maybe feel that way, but a lot of people, closure does bring some sort of comfort.
Maybe you get a little bit. It's you have an end to the story instead of always wondering.
Her dad said something that really hit you in the gut. She was found, I think it was her left side in like the cradle or the fetal position, cradled up. And, he's like, the thing that, kills you the most is not knowing like who she was screaming out for, like what was going on at the time that, it all happened.
Yeah. She'd been killed somewhere else, I think, hadn't she?
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure that was part of in there too. I think she had been killed somewhere else and then
and
brought there. And then they said there were some things around there that it looked like the scene was staged.
Gotcha.
Like it was fake, but they were pretty sure it happened somewhere else.
Ultimately, like a year later, I think the whole family went back out to that place.
Yeah. I think that they went out there and they took her ashes back and scattered them out there. And when I seen that, what I'm thinking is she did die there, but that is not a place that I would think, want to be or want to remember as something that happened there like that. I would want to take her somewhere where, a family place or somewhere maybe was a little bit happier.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what their thinking was to do.
I don't either. And everybody's got their own opinions on stuff. And like, I'm not saying that I'm right, but that was my opinion when I heard it. Was, man, that there can't be great memories there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously. So,
they said she was, young, wild, and free, and it doesn't get much more open and free than out there.
Yeah,
with all the wide open.
It's in the Teton National Forest, isn't it?
Yep.
I mean, it's known for one of the prettiest places on earth.
Yep.
So it is beautiful there. I've never been there, but that's what I hear.
So anyway, September 23rd, a federal arrest warrant is issued for Brian. There's a big search party going on.
What day was it that he left his mom and dad's? Did they say?
September 17th is when the police showed up that they'd got a tip that somebody either OD'd or something. But the parents said that he'd been gone for for days.
Already at that point.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it was weird because you remember the thing like with the Mustang where he had taken it to this, that's the word I can't pronounce.
Creek?
He had taken it to the I'm going to call it the environmental park. He had taken it to there, and it had been left there. And there's actually pictures showing somebody had mowed around it.
Yeah, the grass is really long underneath the car.
And it got ticketed. And so his mom went and picked it up. And it was weird because it showed text messages between Roberta, the mom, and the sister, Casey. And they were, like, joking about, people were saying that Roberta and Brian look so similar. They didn't know which one was which in some of these pictures. And they were kind of joking around.
Yeah, talking about her having a fat bottom. And
about the whole thing. It's like,
telling you that family mental illness ran deep there. It wasn't.
Yes.
It didn't. He didn't suck it out of his thumb. Do you want to talk about the letter?
Yeah, we will. Okay, so this letter, and this all went down when the federal arrest warrant was issued, because that gave the department full clearancy to go in the house and look at everything. And that's when this letter was found.
The letter says, I just want you to remember I will always love you, and I know you will always love me. You are my boy. Nothing can make me stop loving you. Nothing will or could ever divide us, no matter what we do, or where we go, or what we say. We will always love each other. If you're in jail, I will bake you a cake with a file in it. If you need to dispose of a body, I will bring and show up with a shovel and garbage bags. If you fly to the moon, I will be watching the skies for your re-entry. If you say you hate my guts, I'll get new guts. That's so weird. Remember that love is a verb, not a noun. It's not a thing. It's not words. It's actions. Watch people's actions to know if they love you, not their words. Therefore, I am certain that neither death nor life, nor angels, nor the ruling spirits, nor things present, nor things to come, nor powers from above, nor powers from below. Nothing in the entire created world can separate our love. Neither hostile powers, nor messengers of heaven, nor monarchs or of earth. Nothing has the power to separate us. Romans 8:38.
And ultimately,
that's basically the end of it.
Yeah, and ultimately at the bottom.
And then at the bottom of the letter, it has his name, and then it in parentheses it says "burn after reading." And he didn't. She will help him hide the body.
What's your overall take on that letter?
I mean, it's super weird. It's like she could come as close to saying that she knew that he killed her without saying them exact words. The crazy thing to me about like them finding him and stuff is that his parents knew he was gone for all this time and didn't say anything. And then the park was closed down because of flooding. So it wasn't open to the public. So they really couldn't. They had the cops and stuff had been in there looking, and I'm sure like the park rangers and all that stuff had been in there looking for him. But the public actually couldn't go in there until, I don't remember how long it was before they could get in there. But as soon as the park opened back up.
It's October 20th is when it opened back up.
October 20th. So this was, what was the September, like the 1st of September when all this stuff happened?
So September 23rd is when the federal arrest warrant was issued. But whenever they said that he was gone and people found out that he was gone was September 17th. And he had supposedly been gone days before then.
Yeah.
And so then a month.
October 20th is when the park opened back up. So yeah, a little over a month that he was out there. And whenever this park it was like 20,000 acres, I think, or something. Huge. So, I mean, big park. And they were looking all over this thing. And, trying to find somebody and the woods or a park like that, it is looking for a needle in a haystack.
And Florida
Like,
grows
I
up
can't-
way thicker than what
Yeah,
we see
they
in
don't
the
have
Midwest.
all the dead, dying during the winter. It all just keeps growing. And I don't know how many times that I have been blood tracking a deer, and you'll almost walk on top of the son of a bitch before you find it. And that's with a blood trail, knowing exactly where the thing went. Just to walk out in the woods and find somebody, so much harder than people think it is. I mean, you could be literally 5 feet from it and not even know it's there.
Yep. They had dogs, they had drones, they had everything they could possibly use. And it was just so weird to me that
they knew whenever the park opened up, their parents went basically to where they found him at.
within an hour and 45 minutes, they had recovered his body and all his belongings.
They went to the spot. They found some kind of a waterproof bag that he had, and then they found his body like 45 minutes after that. Yep. So they knew exactly where he was at. Didn't tell law enforcement. Didn't give him any kind of hints. Didn't help out in any kind of way at all. They knew that he was going out there to kill himself.
The anonymous phone call about somebody ODing, I think that was staged because they knew he was killing himself. He was going to go kill himself, and it kind of gets them a little.
You think they called the anonymous call in?
I don't think it was them. I don't know. It's just so weird. The whole thing's so weird because they were all. We aren't talking to anybody. We have a lawyer, and then all of a sudden now they're wanting to, fork over. Brian's not here. He's been gone for a couple days. We don't know where he went. It could be at this spot where he frequents whenever he wants to go camping. Then they offer up all this, and they hadn't said shit the whole time.
Yeah,
it seems a little fishy to me.
They knew exactly where he was going.
They found him as a crow flies, exactly a mile from his car. Exactly a mile from that car.
And I don't know how long, in that environment it would take to decompose and everything, but they said that he was basically bones.
Yeah. They said he'd already been decomposed.
Yeah. It was basically, there was nothing left but the bones. So he didn't camp out there for a few weeks and then kill himself. It was, he was going out there to kill himself.
Yep. They ultimately found letters to his loved ones as far as like his family, and he'd even wrote some letters talking about, he made this story up about how Gabby fell down, got hurt,
she fell into the water, and I think it kind of like almost he wanted to act like she drowned.
Yeah, well, he said that she had said something about wanting him to put her out of her misery.
She was just in so much pain, and
he said it was like a mercy killing, and he wanted to apologize to her parents and all this other stuff.
He said he said in the letters he thought about driving up to where her dad was and telling him so her dad could kill him.
It was bizarre, the shit that he wrote, but I mean, he lied about all of it.
Yeah, it was all
literally lied.
Yeah, I mean, she did have the blunt force trauma, but she died from being strangled.
Yeah, strangulation.
So I don't know. Maybe he knocked her out and then just choked her to death while she was unconscious. I don't know.
I just want to know how the fuck Roberta and Chris Landry, how had they not been charged with anything?
Nothing. There's got to be something, and maybe they're just trying to build a case.
There's got to be something conspiracy-wise
yeah.
to charge them with something.
There has to be proof out there of them admitting something. There has to be. I bet I don't know, their text messages back and forth, or with their daughter. There's proof out there somewhere. There's too much shady shit.
I think the daughter knew what happened too.
I do too.
I think she was just putting on a face.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she knew for sure.
Yeah, the mom and dad 100% knew the day of or the day after Gabby was killed by Brian. And then there's got to be some sort of charge that they can get charged with.
It's like they went out when they went camping. They went out and went camping as maybe like a last hurrah. Like I think at that time all this was planned that he was gonna go away and kill himself.
Do you think they went camping at the exact spot he went and shot himself at?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
I don't know. It's pissed a lot of people off that there was no explanation as to why he did it.
Yeah. If he would have been taken into custody, maybe we would know some more to this story. But
or maybe he just doesn't say anything and we're in the same boat.
Big failure on the police's, on the police on this one, especially for him getting away. Now, the police that pulled over Gabby and him while they were, when they had gotten in kind of the first fight there, when that guy had seen him hitting her, that was a weird situation because from the police's aspect, like they seen it as her attacking him, her being the aggressor. I'm not saying that was the case, but that was the story that she had kind of fed them.
Yeah.
So there's not much they can really do about it at that point.
No.
I know that there's been...
As soon as she said that she was the aggressor and she was starting it and initiating the... because they weren't talking about on there, like, him being charged with domestic assault.
Mm-hmm.
It was her.
Yeah, she was
the one that was going to get charged.
Yep. And I know that even since all this has happened, there's been some law changes, and I think they've changed some of the procedure to there's like a 12-question thing that they go over that kind of figures out if there is domestic abuse, which direction.
Yep.
So, it's a terrible situation, but maybe that could end up saving more lives.
Yeah. They had changed how these kind of cases are going to be questioned by law enforcement, and they were one of the Petito family. I think the first one, it was out in Utah, where the legislation, I can't remember what it was, 117 or 120, I can't remember what number it was, but that they were definitely out there campaigning, trying to help get it pushed through over the whole situation, because things like that, that could save a life.
Her mom said that she feels like if it would have been, if they would have had this questions when they were first pulled over, that her daughter would still be alive.
Yep. Yeah, and I know they also started the Gabby Petito Foundation, which basically brings attention to domestic violence. So basically you can go on that website and, if you need help now, there's a number that you can call and reach out to somebody, try to help you out. What are some of your big takeaways on this? I know, obviously, Brian, his ultimate goal was to isolate her from all friends, most of their family, and selfishly have her for himself is
he
what
got
the
her,
evidence leads to.
He got her isolated, and there was obviously some physical abuse there, so you can only imagine what the mental abuse was behind closed doors.
Verbal, all of it, emotional. It's
just some of the text messages that he sent her. He wasn't afraid to go over the line. That's very fucking obvious. So, I don't know. It's really hard to say how this situation could have been avoided or stopped. If you're going through some kind of mental or physical abuse, just reach out to somebody. Just don't be afraid to try to find help, because you're not only maybe helping yourself, you're helping somebody else down the road too.
Yeah. Well, and you look at this, and there's a community affected. There's multiple family members affected. She had 6 younger siblings.
Yeah. And she was so young, and she had so much life ahead of her. Hard telling, what she could have done in her life, or, the kids she could have had, and they went on and did stuff. You didn't just, stop her. It's her whole bloodline and everything she could have done. So, and
there's a lot of people out there doing exactly what she did, going out and trying to live a life in a van or travel, and
I know this was highly publicized because she's a pretty white girl, And a lot of everything nowadays, everybody wants to bring race into it. But when you get to looking into the statistics of it and the facts behind who goes missing and what is reported and what gets TV time, there's definitely a disparity there.
Yes.
Just within the indigenous community itself, the numbers will shock you if you see how many of these people actually do end up going missing and nobody ever hears anything about it. Would they have found Gabby if there wasn't any publicity on this issue? No. The only reason they found her is because that one woman who had that 2-second clip on her phone, that woman would have never known anything about this if it hadn't been publicized.
Yeah.
So they probably would have never found her body because he wouldn't have admitted to it. So the little facts that we do know about it was because it was out there in the public eye. So, people don't want to hear about stories like this all the time because it's sad and depressing, and you don't want to hear nothing but depressing shit from your news all the time. But I think there does need to be some more, maybe a way to get disappearances out into the public eye a little bit better.
Yeah, I agree. And looking, on that docuseries, they did give some percentages. Like, there was 89,000 missing people cases last year, and 45% of them were, I don't know if it was
It's people of color.
People of color,
which make up 20% of the population.
Yeah, and
so it's a big
majority of them were not publicized.
Yeah.
So there's got to be a way that more of these cases can get the publicity, so that way ultimately these missing people can be found in one way or another.
I know that in the indigenous communities and stuff around it's the sex trafficking is a really, really bad thing, and maybe that's something we can look into a little bit further on a different episode or something, but it's definitely not publicized near enough. We need to have a better outlet of making people aware of who is missing, and get some more faces on TV so people can kind of have a look out to maybe help find some of these people.
Because there's there is so many people with phones, video cameras, surveillance.
Mm-hmm.
There is so much out there that if somebody were to get more publicity showing their face, a lot more people are going to recognize the face. That's only going to help you in any missing person case to get eyes, people looking out. One Facebook post, somebody seeing that and recognizing somebody, it goes a long ways.
And with the police departments and stuff, doing something like that would cost them a lot of money. So maybe that's a reason they don't push that kind of stuff as much as what maybe they should, because they have to have somebody taking those tips that they get in. And in certain cases like hers, I know there was thousands of tips coming in from all over the place. So you have to have somebody taking in all those tips, because usually most of them aren't worth a shit. But, if there's one that helps, that's all you need.
Yep.
So, maybe that's a reason why it isn't as out in our for the public to see, is because of just the money reasons.
It'd be a shame if it is.
Instead, we're sending all of our money for a fucking transgender research in Afghanistan or a Sesame Street commercial.
We just had to go there.
Oh
didn't
man,
we?
I can't help myself. It's the truth.
So I watched a news clip of it was Gabby's dad, stepmom, mother, and stepdad, and her biological father said Brian was a coward till the day he died. His family has to know now that he took the coward's way out, and Brian was raised by cowards.
For sure, yeah. Like I said, you definitely want to. You're going to try to protect your kid in any way you can, and just because they killed somebody doesn't mean you're going to stop loving them. But it doesn't mean that they shouldn't be in prison. They should have been making that call.
To me, he said it a lot, and after he made that comment, he said, I'm watching what I say. I've got other words I could have said, but we're on TV, and I want to be respectful to you. But I agree, dude.
It seemed to me like the mom was the one that's kind of the crazy one of the whole bunch.
They're both both shitty to me.
Oh, they both are, but I'm sure, the dad, just from the little things I see him on there, he kind of seemed like he wanted to say more. He kind of seemed like he was holding back, probably from her in his ear. But that doesn't make him right. I don't know. They both should be in prison.
For sure. And the daughter too, if she knew.
If there's proof of it, and I think it'd be a hell of a lot easier to find proof that the parents were involved than the sister. I think maybe it could have been hid from her a little bit easier. But
I think the calling the lawyer and wiring $25,000 is proof enough.
That's reason enough right there. You're guilty. You're what guilty. The hell happened. Maybe that isn't concrete proof if you bring it up in front of a jury, but everybody's going to honestly think that that's what happened. If
I was on the jury, I've never been selected for jury duty. If I was on the jury and I had all this evidence laid out in front of me, and on the day that these detectives say that this guy was murdered or this woman was killed, and either that day or the next day they're wiring $25,000, $25,000 is a lot of money.
Yeah.
To a lawyer, you're guilty.
It must have been a pretty damn good lawyer, because that's a lot of money for what do they call it? Whenever you first get your lawyer to start a case,
your retainer.
Your retainer. That's a big retainer. I've had several lawyers, and they've not been nothing like that.
Well, you've never been on a murder trial either.
There you go. That's probably more expensive that way.
Yeah.
The only reason that they're not in prison right now is because there is some kind of room for reasonable doubt. But in my opinion, there's evidence somewhere.
Their evidence is already out there.
There's enough evidence, in my opinion.
To me, yeah.
But there has to be hard evidence that proves there was something somewhere.
Yeah. I guess it's just my speculation, but I don't know. I think 25 G's wired to a lawyer is evidence enough.
Yeah.
There's got to be something that has to be a conspiracy to do something. There's got to be something there.
There has to be.
But if they haven't been charged yet, then there may not be.
Even if he told them that they had gotten a fight and he'd beat her up or something, that's still not cause to go out there and get a $25,000 retainer for a lawyer.
Yeah.
So the only thing that could have been is that he killed her.
Yes. Yeah, because in that in the note, he said, or in that letter that they found, he said that it was a mercy killing. Is that what he told his family? It doesn't matter. He said that I killed her.
Yeah.
He said that she's gone.
Yeah, even if they thought it was a mercy killing and that he was, maybe in the right, you still got to get that out there.
For sure.
You can't hide that. That's got to be enough right there to get some kind of charges brought against you, in my opinion.
You're not even going to help the other family find out what happened to their daughter, who they trusted your son with.
They would have never known.
No.
If it wasn't for that one video that lady had.
Nope.
They would have had no clue.
I honestly think that the dude, that Brian, thought he was going to get away with it. I honestly think he thought that.
That's what they were hoping for. Why would you want to get away with it?
I don't know, dude.
That shows you how much of a psychopath him and his family is right there.
I don't know. That's a fucked up family.
To be okay with doing something like that and then just coming home and going on a fucking camping trip with your family.
And for her to, in that letter, say, I will help you dig the hole.
Yeah.
Dude, what the hell?
She's insane.
I don't know. I don't know. I mean,
there's so many interesting points to it, and things that people see that's messed up, and that's why the story has been as big as it is.
well, and it's crazy that there was new information that came out on this docuseries, which I guess the person or whoever did the first one didn't have access to. What I thought was cool, what I thought was cool with this is they used AI to generate her voice on her journal entries throughout it. So like you would hear her voice talking, and it was a lot of her journal entries that she was actually, they used AI for her to read.
I figured that was off of her blog that she was talking about.
A lot of it was used AI reading out of her journal.
It's kind of scary.
Yes, it is.
There's going to be in the next 10 years, there's going to be videos out there that are AI that you won't be able to tell the difference in it, and it's going to get a lot of people on a lot of shit.
Yep.
It's cool. It is cool that they can do stuff like that, but it's at the same time it's kind of scary.
Yes, it is. You have any other thing you want to say in regards to this?
I don't think so.
It's just been a crazy story following it, and whenever we seen the docuseries, heck, we thought this only happened like a year ago, but it's been a couple years now. I mean, time's been flying by.
It does go quick.
But yeah, the only thing that I really have to say is go out. If you haven't seen the docuseries on Netflix, go out, or not go out, but flip it on, watch it.
There's a lot more in this documentary than that, because I've watched a couple other ones on YouTube and stuff, and this one had a lot more information on it than the other ones did.
Yes.
There's a lot of new stuff that came out on this one.
It's helping. You go on and watching it and getting the views on it. It's helping the family, and obviously a lot of that is going to, the Gabby, Petito, the foundation, which is trying to get out there and bring attention to domestic violence, which is...
Is there like a website or a link maybe we can get associated with this so we can put at the bottom of the video? Maybe people can check it out.
Yeah, we'll see if we can't add that on there. I'm sure if you type in just in the URL, Gabby Petito Foundation, it'll pop it up. But we'll see if we can't get that link put in at the bottom of the video here. Yeah, it's just been, it was such a sad story. Somebody taken way too soon and taken by somebody that didn't deserve her. And
he did not deserve her at all. I don't know how the hell he ever ended up with her.
I don't know either.
I think a good way to end the podcast is just, if you're somebody out there, you're listening to this and you know somebody that's going through any kind of domestic, mental abuse or physical abuse, get help. Talk to somebody about it, because Gabby probably never thought she was going to get murdered, and it happened. So you never know. Get out of a bad situation. There's always ways to find something better.
Yeah, if you or someone has experienced relationship abuse, information and resources are available at wannatalkaboutit.com. So there's a lot of websites out there, a lot of phone numbers out there that you can call. Just get some help. And if you're feeling any sort of way that you feel like you could hurt somebody or anything like that, you need to reach out for help too.
Yep.
You reaching out, I know it probably is a tough step, but you reaching out and getting some help, it's only going to help you, your family, people around you, and the world. It's going to make it a better place.
Yep.
But all right, I think that's going to be a wrap on episode number 6. We've got some guests coming on here soon that we're looking forward to. We hope you all enjoyed this one. I know a lot of you all probably followed along with this story, and it's been one that's kind of swept the nation for sure. And it's just one of those stories that you hate to hear shit like this happening, but it does happen out there. And how many times has it happened where nobody really knows about it? Just be careful, be vigilant out there. But yeah, we're looking forward to getting some other podcasts out. And that's going to be a wrap for podcast number 6, something to talk about.
Just started the Facebook page. If you follow us on YouTube, but you don't on Facebook yet, go check out our Facebook page. Something to Talk About podcast. Should be pretty easy to find. It's got our ugly mugs on it.
Yeah. Sorry about that. But all right, that's going to be a wrap here. Thank you all for listening.
Take care.